Hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. How you doing? You're doing well. It's gonna be a pretty low-key stream today. I'm quite sleepy. I just packed for my trip. So got some trips coming up. It's gonna be a weekend. Hey, Rysair. It's gonna be a weekend this weekend. Happy Bison Day. Oh yeah, Bison. My Twitter feed was full of optimal Bison combos. You know how it goes day one when a new character comes out. Everyone's like, this character's broken. And he might be. But, you know, they're just doing like full 80% punish counter combos from mid-screen. Like, I even saw something, it was like, oh, how good is OD Psycho Crusher against projectiles? And it was a Rashid doing Yasar, like, right in Bison's face. And Bison OD Psycho Crusher went through it. And everyone's like, whoa, Pog. Rashid sucks now. And it's like, dude, chill. Scissor kicks is a problem. Right, yeah, they're just like spamming scissor kicks from like sweep range where it's like safe on block, and they're like, oh, it's broken. And like, yeah, I'm sure it's good, but like, come on. Like, come on. I don't know, man. In a game with parry, like, can scissor kicks really be that bad? Maybe. I don't know. But whatever. That's not my problem. So yeah, I have this weekend coming up. Starting tomorrow, I'm heading up to a friend's place. We're gonna stay there, travel on the weekend to Ann Arbor, Michigan for a little regional action for Grand Archive. That'll be on Sunday. I'll be playing in a regional on Sunday. Fly back Monday, hang out with friends all week. Fly back out on Friday again to Springfield, Virginia, where I will be competing in another GA regional on that Saturday, and then coming back home Sunday. So I will not be back after today. I will not be back until Sunday, July 7th. Yeah, so 2 regionals in 2 weekends. Really got to try to get those qualifier cards. I really want the qualifier cards. So I'm gonna try to grind it out. I got a pretty good deck. I've been practicing. I just gotta make sure I'm not too tired and make sure I focus up, which shouldn't be too big a problem. So yeah, today will be the last stream. I figured I'd do more Umineko, see how far we can get in chapter 3, and then pick it back up when I get back. And then I'll be on a pretty strict timeline to finish before climax. But yeah, like I said, it's gonna be pretty low key. I'm not gonna like get terribly excited probably unless some crazy stuff happens. Probably gonna read it a little calmer. I mean, normally I read it pretty straight anyways, but I'm not gonna really rush through it or anything. I'm just gonna kind of chill. We'll read some Umineko, we'll chat, and yeah, that'll be that for today. I'm only gonna go for a couple hours too, just as a heads up. The 4 siblings, Natsuki and Hideyoshi, all rose from their seats forcefully and flew out into the hallway with a clatter. Afterwards, only the children, stunned completely speechless, Nanjo, who looked uncomfortable, and Kairi, who just shrugged, were left. I don't remember what happened. Oh. So they read the letter. Okay, they read the letter and they think Kinzo did it. So they're all going off to ask Kinzo if he sent that letter. In the middle of all this was Maria, who looked a little scared at the adult's sudden change. However, judging from her appearance, she didn't look like she realized the full meaning of what she'd just read. What in the world was that all about? I don't get it. They're all bastards. Do you really want the inheritance that much? Everyone, this is our parents' problem. It has nothing to do with us. So you mustn't worry about it. Even if you say that, they were so blatant about it. I can't believe them. Showing off their greed like that. Everyone has to believe together that we'll be happy. That's right. We all did promise. Come on, Battler. Jessica, you too. I feel horrible. We couldn't accept it at all, but we laid down our arms for the time being. We'd been vaguely aware of how filthy this family conference was going to be. However, after that 6-year blank, I couldn't help but be shocked. When he saw that the children were completely dejected, Dr. Nanjo cleared his throat uncomfortably. Whoa! Sup, Arctic? Thank you for the prime. I appreciate it. Welcome to the tournament staff. Hope you enjoy your ad-free experience. It's an adult matter. It has nothing to do with all of you young people. Let us forget about it. I would if I could. I know it's hard, but forget it for now. All of your parents are fighting frantically to make your futures just a little brighter. Please, don't look at your injured parents with those cold eyes when they come back. No matter how much you ask us, Kairi, that'll be enough. If we could be happy with an explanation like that, we wouldn't be kids. Everyone, be happy. It can't get dark. Believe. If everyone doesn't believe we can be happy, then the happiness will get away. Everyone has to believe. I like the sound of that. I'll believe too. I'll believe we can find happiness. Aunt Kiri, thank you. Battler and Jessica, you believe too. Beatrice is also always saying that magic won't have any power if you don't believe. Kairi rose from her seat quickly, went over to Maria, and crouched down so that their eyes met. Aunt Kiri believed. Now Battler and Jessica have to. Those two are strong. They'll feel better soon, and then they'll believe. Yeah. More importantly, I want you to tell me something. When Kairi said that, Jessica, George, Doctor, and Nanjo and I all listened really closely. It looked like our parents were so concerned with the inheritance problem that grandfather filled their minds. But we wanted to ask Maria about something simpler. What's up? Who gave you that letter? Beatrice. That witch drawn in that portrait? Yeah. She gave me this letter and an umbrella. And she used magic to fix my rose that was broken. Beatrice is an awesome witch who can do anything. Could you tell us about that in a bit more detail? Oh, chapter end. (8 p.m.) Without even being allowed to wait for dessert, we were chased out of the room. I heard that, in the end, our parents were unable to get grandfather to respond. Well, I hate to say it, but I feel like giving grandfather a high five right now. He was probably pretty satisfied with how his strange letter had given his children a good shock, since they'd all been so infatuated with the inheritance problem while grandfather was still alive. I also felt like our despicable parents had gotten what they deserved in all of this confusion. But I couldn't really say that I was feeling great. Felt all sulky. Apparently, grandfather hadn't seemed concerned with the whole thing, but he also hadn't denied anything about the letter either. When talking about the witch's letter, grandfather's name kept popping up. If grandfather knew that someone was stealing his name, then considering his character, he'd probably be mad with rage. But even though grandfather now knew the contents of that letter, he coldly ignored it. So, does that count as a silent yes? Aunt Ava and Dad were trying to interpret the letter in their favor, their greed clearly visible. It wouldn't have mattered so much if that was all, but the adults now started focusing on Maria, who had received the letter. They kept pounding her with questions about who had given it to her. Maria repeated over and over again that she had gotten it from Beatrice, but there was no way such a mysterious person could have sneaked onto the island. After all, this island is small, and there's no one living on it outside of the Ushiromiya family household. Maria kept repeating that she'd gotten it from Beatrice, no matter how many times she was asked. The adults seemed to think she was trying to trick them, so they didn't hold back and questioned her until she broke out in tears. When Maria was released, she sobbed, all worn out from crying. After our parents ordered us to go to the guest house and take Maria with us, they shut themselves up in a dining hall and started getting louder and louder as they discussed the inheritance. It seemed that, because of that strange letter, Uncle Krause's chances of becoming the next head might have been reduced to a blank slate. And in exchange for accepting him, my dad and the rest were trying to swindle Uncle Krause out of a lot of money, or something like that. Disgusted as we were, Jessica and I were happy to move over to the guest house. We didn't want to be under the same roof as those filthy adults, their heads so filled with thoughts about money. George pled on our parents' behalf, saying that he wanted us to understand them. I understood his reasoning. No matter how filthy this talk of money was, it couldn't go away if you just closed your eyes to it. But even so, how could they sink so low as to overtly fight over money of the dead? Wondering who's gonna die tonight. Ooh. I filled out the 2XKO alpha survey. I hope they let me into the alpha. I'll definitely stream it if I'm allowed to stream it when it comes out. It'll be so sick. Maria had cried herself dry and was hiding in her bed. She hadn't even twitched for a while, so she was probably sleeping. Who in the world gave that letter to Maria? George, you can't ask her that anymore. Isn't it fine to say that Maria got it from Beatrice and leave it at that? That's why I saw stuff a game again on the timeline? Yeah, you can go to, I think it's just like riot.com/2xko or something like that. And there's a survey that you fill out and apply to get access to the alpha. After all, we don't want to make her cry any more than this. Even though we said that. We couldn't clear away a gloomy feeling. There are only 18 people on this island now. The thought that somewhere in the rain, a 19th person gave Maria the letter and is now hiding somewhere. Oh, here's an interesting one about this game that I'm just realizing now. Beatrice herself did not make an appearance at the mansion. Which kind of didn't even matter in the last game. But she didn't, like, waltz in and make an appearance like she did last time. Or maybe she did and nobody saw her. Most likely, someone got Shannon or someone to put on the dress from the portrait and cleverly got Maria to go along with their story. Though, in Maria's case, just seeing the dress would probably convince her that it really was Beatrice. Maybe it doesn't really matter who handed her that letter. The important thing is who sent it. The point is that grandfather wanted to cause an uproar by assuming the name of the witch. Seriously, that old geezer's good at riling people up. The most likely answer is that our occult-loving grandfather was playing around, handing the letter over to Maria, who shares the same hobby as he does, in such a dramatic way. Although he failed to give any thought for what Maria would have to go through, making it a pretty shitty thing to do. Seriously. Messing around with Maria's pure heart. Doesn't matter who handed that letter over. Hi dog, how's it going? Maria says she got it from Beatrice, so let's treat it that way. I agree. Let's do that. To Maria-chan, Beatrice is kind of like what Santa Claus is to most kids. Whether you're dealing with some non-existent 19th person or Santa Claus himself, as long as we all acknowledge them, they'll at least exist inside of Maria. I see. I guess it can be important to lie to a child to protect their dreams. What's up, Jessica? Most sane millennial, imagine keeping whimsy alive in children. Jessica, are you still angry? Jessica had her hand on her chin, as though there was something that she just couldn't understand. When I called out to her, she came to her senses. Sorry. Actually, I was wondering if Maria might have actually met Beatrice. What do you mean by that? Are you saying there's a 19th person on this island? If you truly take Maria's words to heart, then you would arrive at that answer. No, that's not what I meant. I'm talking about the story that someone we don't know has been living on this island since long ago. Living, you say? Where? In the forest. Oh, are we going to the forest this episode? Dun, 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 dun. The adults were gathered around the dining hall, spending a very long time continuing the discussion that had been started by Beatrice's letter. Krause strongly claimed the letter was a simple prank, but he couldn't overturn the claim that Kinzo's failure to deny the letter was answer enough. Judging by Kinzo's character, if he knew that a letter had been written in his name, he'd be mad with rage. Since all of the siblings knew that, Kraus had no choice but to withdraw his claim. Without even having to summarize that the contents of the letter were simple, the person who could solve the witch's epitaph would receive the headship and its assets. This did a lot of damage to Kraus, who had been sure that he would receive the headship, and was better news than the rest of them, who had already given up, could have hoped for. However, there were some points that worried them. The person who solved the epitaph was not limited to a member of the Ushiromiya family. Taken literally, anyone, no matter how doubtful their origin, might receive the headship. Furthermore, this meant that there was a chance that all of their assets would be stolen by some unknown person. In that sense, it was definitely not a situation where even the other siblings could afford to lower their guard. Had this letter come from an assassin sent by Kinzo, calling themselves Beatrice? Or was this the scheme of some unknown person trying to steal the Ushiromiya family's wealth? They still didn't know the truth. But they could say one thing for certain. Maria had received this problematic letter today on this island. In other words, someone planning something to do with that letter was on this island today. Had it been set up by Kinzo? One of the 4 siblings, maybe? Or maybe even some unknown person. No matter how much they suspected each other, they couldn't reach a conclusion. After getting tired of bickering with each other, they finally reached the extremely obvious conclusion that doubting each other was just a waste of time. We've made no progress. We've just been spinning our wheels. That's right. And the mere fact that you've realized it means we won't have to waste any more time. It's not certain that Father sent that letter. My husband is merely exasperated by your inability to hold a conversation. Who's unable to hold a conversation? You keep yelling at me every time I say something. Do you truly think that such shameful behavior is fitting for a member of the Ushiromiya family? Oh, give it a rest, Ava. You too, Natsuhi. That topic's finished for now. Shall we all cool our heads off then? Let's have some cool drinks brought over. That sounds good. It would probably be wiser if we cooled our heads. Do you want to take a short break too, dear? Aniki does look like she's in a bad mood, so I'll pass on that break. But I agree about the cool drinks. Rosa, have someone bring some water. A whole pitcher. If she suggests tea here, that's going to be sus. Yes, understood. Okay. Rosa headed over to the extension telephone in a corner of the room and called the servant's room. She then passed on what Rudolph had told her to the person on the other end. Okay, just water. Just water. Clean. The vicious bickering up until now vanished as though it had been a lie. The silence continued until Goda finished setting the table and retreated from the room. Is there anything else that you require? No. Please leave us. Yes. Then if you will excuse me, if you need anything, call me at any time. After listening to the sound of Goda's footsteps disappear off into the distance, everyone took a deep breath at the same time to break the tension. Sure is raining hard. I wonder if this 19th person is taking shelter in the Rose Garden arbor about now. I wonder. Might be able to escape the rain there, but it would be quite cold. A mysterious 19th person as a visitor. Sounds pretty interesting. Just like a mystery novel. Normally, in that kind of story, it's a safe bet that the person doesn't exist and one of the 18 are faking it. I suspect Genji and the others. Immediate snap sus on Genji from Natsuhi. Just as I thought, it would have been better if we dismissed all of the servants of the One-Winged Eagle, no matter what excuses we had to make. Come now, don't say that. We must be grateful for their long years of service. Of course, we can't let our guard down. I'm sure you agree too, Nissan, that whether or not Father was behind this, the person who handed Maria that letter was a servant. Indeed. In any event, we were all being friendly in a big happy circle until dinner, weren't we? All of the siblings have alibis. Only a servant could have handed Maria that letter. But all of the servants said they were too busy with the bed making to have any spare time during which they could go to Maria in the Rose Garden. Hey, hey. What are you trying to say then? You aren't saying that the Witch of the Forest, Beatrice-sama, came over and actually handed Maria that letter, are you? Rosa, you used to believe in that so much it really frightened you, right? Don't tell me you still believe at this age in the Witch of the Forest. If she did exist, I'd love for her to appear. But no matter how much I wish, she did not appear before me even once. She didn't save me from my crisis. So Ava never saw Beatrice growing up. Of course not. I just thought that since all 18 of us said we didn't do it, there might actually be a 19th person. That can't be. In the first place, we were the only ones who came in on that boat. We didn't see any mysterious stranger riding with us. You don't think they could have swam across the rough sea, right? I can't imagine it. Logically, that's true. It's difficult to imagine that there's a single hidden and uninvited guest on this isolated island. However, it looks like some of us can't abandon that possibility completely, right? Hideyoshi had laughed it off, saying that there couldn't be a 19th person. But Kiri had sensitively picked up on the delicate atmosphere among the four siblings. In a normal situation, there shouldn't have been any uninvited guests on this small, isolated island. How would they have come here, and from where? And where were they hiding? And why hadn't they appeared openly, even though they had sent a letter in their name? Nothing could explain that. But not only had the four siblings not joined in on Hideyoshi laughing, they also seemed unable to completely deny in their hearts the possibility of a 19th person. Kitty, please don't misunderstand. It's not as though we believe in anything like that fairy tale legend of the witch. Is this another topic to insult Father? Simply speaking of such a thing as betrayal against him. I wonder. However, this is Father we're talking about. It could be possible, right? I don't know anything. Well, hold on. Why has everyone gotten so gloomy? What are y'all talking about? In short, the legend of the witch isn't a joke, but a fact? No way, that's ridiculous. Of course, nobody believes in some witch riding a broom and flying in the sky, but the woman in that portrait, Beatrice, might really have existed on this island. Hideyoshi, it looks like we aren't talking about a witch, but something a little simpler. So it must be something like this. Everyone suspects that Father had a mistress named Beatrice secretly living somewhere on the island. Is that it? Father was always exemplary at keeping strictly to the rules. It is completely inconceivable that he would bring something so filthy onto this island. Not that he snapped at them immediately, but it looked like the four siblings, including Kraus, didn't agree. On the contrary, they appeared to think Kinzo wouldn't even have hesitated to do something like that. From the beginning, it had been whispered that Kinzo had built a mansion on the island specifically because of the existence of an entrancing mistress. I'm sorry, Natsuhi. I know how much you respect Dad, but that rumor's been around for a long time. All the buildings on Rokujima were built by Dad on his own. People have always guessed he had some contraption or secret room set up in this mansion that only he knew about. But it's always been whispered that hidden somewhere on the island, there's a secret mansion none of us know about. I see. The island might look small on a map, but it's quite large for just this family to live on. Some people have suspected that he built a secret mansion somewhere in the uncivilized forest for his mistress to live in. That would be quite a large-scale scheme. In the beginning, people thought it might be somewhere inside the mansion, that there might be a hidden basement with a fabulous hidden room where the witch in that portrait was secretly hiding. After seeing that intricate auto lock on Dad's study, it isn't too hard to imagine, right? Here's a question. Has anyone looked behind the portrait for like a secret passageway or something? After all, Father did... Wait. Wouldn't it make perfect sense? Not perfect sense, right? But wouldn't it make enough sense that, like, the portrait in Kinzo's room and the portrait in the main hall were connected by some kind of hidden tunnel behind them? And that's how Kinzo gets in and out of the room when it stays a closed room? Like, that secret door. I don't think we've ever seen written in red Beatrice say that there's no hidden door in Kinzo's room. That could totally be a hidden passage behind that portrait. That's a classic murder mystery trope. There's also a rumor that the gold was hidden somewhere by some mechanism. It wouldn't be surprised if there existed some hidden room inside this very mansion that none of us knows about yet. When Mother was alive, she would often scour the entire mansion searching for Father when he wasn't anywhere to be found. Mother also suspected what Rudolph just said. She believed there was a hidden door or stairway somewhere, and that his blonde-haired mistress was hidden behind it. Hard to believe, but there are some actual examples in other countries of people cheating with someone over a period of several decades by making them live in a hidden attic room. Reminded me of a Parasite. Furthermore, Kinzo had a mansion this extravagant. It was possible to suspect the existence of a hidden room. From what I've heard, the legend of the Rokkenjima witch was just a fairy tale made up to scare children away from the uncivilized forest. But it's starting to sound like there's a little more to this story. Well, as you know, this is a lonely island without anything but the Ushiromiya mansion on it. When Rosa and I were little brats, on stormy nights, we got so scared by the sound of the trees rustling in the direction of the forest. We had this crazy delusion that something weird might be looking out to us from between those trees. It's really natural for a brat to think of stuff like that. But when Rosa and I complained about it, some people figured it was more than just a brat's imagination. Isn't that right, Anaki? Yeah. Nissan and I thought you might have coincidentally spotted Father's mistress, living in secrecy on the island, as she went for a walk when no one was looking. Of course, Mother felt the same way. Even among the older servants, you often heard that ghost story about how the witch of the portrait wanders the mansion at midnight. Outwardly, I laughed it off just as a ghost story, but on the inside, I suspected very much that it hinted at the existence of a hidden mistress. In that case, you're saying that the existence of a 19th person might not be completely ridiculous? That they might actually be somewhere around here? Sounds like one of those devil's proofs Rudolph's always talking about. Might be possible to prove that there is a 19th person, but it's impossible to prove that there isn't one. Should we continue the discussion under the assumption that there is a person named Beatrice hiding somewhere on this island? That's a good plan, from the perspective of risk management. Probably much more prudent to say she might exist, rather than saying that she couldn't. I see. I was a bit careless. Rosa, sorry for laughing. No, it's fine. I don't mind. Hideyoshi apologized deeply for taking the worst-case scenario lightly, despite calling himself the president of a company. Silence fell again. Preparing for the existence of a 19th person would mean, in effect, acknowledging the presence of some unknown person hidden on this island. And since this person might be planning something shady, it was only natural that the conversation would turn in an ominous direction. In the past, Father would would sometimes suddenly disappear without telling anyone where he went. After all, he is a man who values silence. It wouldn't have been out of the ordinary for him to shut himself up in some library room after purposefully not telling anyone where he was going. However, when the witch theory was slowly refined into the theory about his mistress, people eventually whispered that he was secretly going back and forth to see her. Mom was totally paranoid in her last years. He'd sometimes suddenly start making a fuss, asking the servants to start looking for Dad immediately because of some urgent situation. Yes, that did happen sometimes. Mother was always doing things like that in her later years, and that frightening atmosphere still hasn't gone away. I can say for certain now, she was a person to be pitied. So then, what happened with those large-scale searches of the house? Did they find anything? No. Father wasn't caught foolishly in a hidden room even once. Anyways, after a long time had passed, he would suddenly show up somewhere. Then he'd say he'd taken a nap in some library room or that the wind had summoned him to take a walk on the beach. But it was always some place where the servants had already looked. We never knew where Father had actually gone. Even at the time, Grandfather was famous for his occult... Grandfather was famous for his occult inclinations. So some of the servants exaggerated, saying that he might have turned into butterflies and danced around in the rose garden. So when she says grandfather, she's talking about Kinzo's dad. I believe. which is curious because in the flashback at the beginning of this episode, we saw the young girl referring to grandfather being upset if the vase broke when the gray-haired Beatrice fixed it. I thought that meant that that had to be Maria or Jessica because we didn't know of a grandfather. And, like, Kinzo built this island up. So why is Ava saying grandfather here and not... Maybe it's a translation thing? Maybe she's saying the old man, meaning father, and they just translated it to grandfather? Because it seems bizarre that, like, at this point, this would be the first mentioning of grandfather Ushiromiya, so Kinzo's father, also being occultly inclined. Yeah, I think they're talking about Kinzo there when they say grandfather, but that's a bit wonky. So in short, father frequently disappeared and no one knew where he went. Yeah. Since we couldn't find him no matter how much we looked inside the mansion, we got more and more sure that Dad might have been somewhere outside. But the area outside the mansion isn't large at all, which leaves only the forest. And if you tie in with the legend of the witch, you get a theory like this. Father actually built a hidden mansion somewhere in that forest, inside of which a mistress by the name of Beatrice lived, and he sometimes went to see her. I was also young at the time, so I was eager to find where Father was having his affair that, at one time, I followed him when he went outside. Of course, it was a failure. Every time Father went out, he was oddly intent on avoiding places where he might be seen, and was extremely careful to prevent anyone from spotting him. And he was extraordinarily earnest in his attempts to do so. But that actually made me sure. He must have been going out for some reason that the members of his family couldn't know about. And that'd be going to meet his mistress. Probably trying to avoid being seen. After seeing Hideyoshi nod and say yes, yes, as though this was quite obvious, Ava got a little sullen. Well, anyway, this island was like a sketchbook in which Father, with his Western obsession, could draw out all of his dreams. Everything about this island was exactly as he wanted. It would be odd if... It wouldn't be odd at all if there was a hidden mansion somewhere for his mistress to live in. Ava's words spoke for what all of the siblings have come to think. For a while, the room returned to silence again, and everyone listened to the sound of the wind and the rain. Was there a hidden mansion on this island? And had Kinzo's mistress been living there in hiding for a long, long time? Everyone thought they were being too suspicious, and they hesitated for a long time without speaking. But everyone shared a common opinion. Kiri, who had been listening to the whole time with her eyes closed, spoke to no one in particular.
Rysair VT Heart sending hugs.
Kira, thank you for the resub. At tier 2, 51 months of support on the tournament staff. Much appreciated. Hugs received. Thank you for the support, as always. I appreciate it. How long has this rumor about Father's mistress been around? As soon as we moved to the island, about 30 years ago. After all, it probably wouldn't have been impossible for him to have a hidden mansion built while we were here. People and materials would have been going in and out. It would have been exposed quickly. So if it was possible, it happened before we moved here. It probably could have been built along with this mansion when we were still living in Odawara. Since Father had set up a double life with his family and his mistress, it's probably reasonable to assume that he had it all planned from the beginning. And his relationship with that mistress probably went back to the days when we lived in Odawara. Probably. If, as Father says, she is the source of the vast amount of gold he used to gain funds that resurrected the Ushiromiya family, we could probably conclude that they had a close relationship since Odawara. A relationship trusting enough for her to lend him a vast quantity of gold. I can't even imagine how old that relationship must have been. Perhaps Father gave her some kind of valuable advice for succeeding in business. Natural to think that, out of a sense of gratitude for that, this person gave Father the gold. If you think about it that way, it's obvious they would have a close relationship after that. Rather than a festering relationship with a mistress, it was probably a relationship of gratitude to the person who saved the Ushiromiya family from its crisis. I don't know if what Natsu is saying has a ring of truth to it or not. But even in that case, isn't building a hidden mansion and having her live in it going a bit too far? Doesn't that mean they felt something a bit more than gratitude? Well, this is all just speculation. In the first place, no one's ever found the hidden mansion. Aniki, you were planning on expanding this island into a resort, right? As you were doing that, you didn't manage to stumble upon it by chance, did you? Maybe you even bumped into some gold there too? Heh. Do you think Rokonjima is a treasure island or something? Don't play dumb. We know that, although you say you're opening a resort, you're really just planning to investigate the entire island, right? Judging by all the trouble and confusion you were talking about earlier, you haven't been very successful, have you? I don't know what you're talking about, but it is a misunderstanding. Isn't it perfectly natural that investigating this island would be the first step in turning it into a resort? Kraus tried to play dumb, but it was so plainly obvious to his siblings, who all knew him so well. Kraus was definitely sure of the existence of a hidden mansion. And under the pretense of opening a resort, he had been closely investigating the island, searching for a clue as to the location of the hidden gold. They couldn't tell whether that conviction was just him overthinking things, or whether it was based on some physical proof. Still, if Kraus, with all of his guile, was sure, this was enough proof for the other siblings to be sure too. The story about a witch living in a forest is obviously a fairy tale, but the story about some blonde-haired girl living secretly in a mansion no one knows about in the middle of that forest isn't much better. That's right. That really would just be like a fairy tale. Don't you... You like fairy tales, don't you, Rosa? Huh? Well... When the mansion was built on this island, Father was at the height of his prosperity. With his money, he could probably obtain anything, make any of his wild imaginings real. A mansion in the forest where a witch quietly waits. Sounds like the kind of situation Father would like. Doesn't it? Sounds like something from the occult or a fairy tale. Feels like Dad's kind of hobby. On this island, on which the Yushiromiya family had lived for 30 years now, a hidden mansion that no one knew about had been quietly built to house a witch, about whom nothing was known except what could be guessed from a portrait. Even this hastily thrown together theory might not be completely delusional, considering all of Kinzo's strange habits and his vast wealth. It might not have been impossible for Father to build a hidden mansion to satisfy his dreams. However, let's be realistic. Would it be possible to house his beloved woman in that hidden mansion for decades without it becoming inconvenient? Well, if there was love, it could have been doable, right? Think of the facilities needed to let his beloved woman live healthily, and in a way that would satisfy him. For example, even if it was on a small scale, it would have to have been an intricate and pleasant residence. And it would probably need to have electricity, gas, running water, some people, some servants to meet her needs. Even cooking would be quite difficult. She would need clothes and makeup and the daily necessities. The needs of a woman aren't simple. Would it be possible to maintain all of that without any of the family or servants noticing? When they say it that way, it sure sounds like a weak point in our theory. But that isn't enough to get rid of my feeling that Dad might have been able to do it anyways. After all, it is Dad we're talking about. That's right. It is our dear father. If Father wanted to succeed in an endeavor, he would succeed no matter what. Saying that something would be difficult for a normal person and therefore impossible doesn't apply when it comes to Father. Indeed, you should never underestimate him. Father's madness cannot be understood by normal people. I wouldn't put it past that Kinzo. As long as you stick to the phrase, a considerable amount of credibility can dwell in any absurd story. However, that didn't cause the importance of what Kiri had to waver. This was different from stealthily raising a kitten in a cardboard box and keeping it a secret from your parents. Taking care of a person in secret over a period of 30 years would be an incalculably massive task. After all, Father's legend of the gold started before he gained possession of Rokonjima. That'd mean his relationship with his mistress was over 30 years long? How old would that make her? In worst case, she could be as old as us or older, right? By that age, the body starts to break down. I don't care what the mansion's like. I wouldn't use the word agreeable to describe living in a place where people's eyes can't reach. Almost like she was under house arrest. That's right. If what Father told us about Beatrice is true, then the relationship has lasted for over 30 years. She might have been a charming young woman at the time, but it probably makes sense to assume she's an old bag like us now. I can easily imagine that, given the contents of that letter. You should talk. Kraus laughed as if none of this applied to him. Of course, Ava was offended, but she didn't strike back. Quit it, Aniki. So, if everything we're thinking is true, then she should be joining in on Dad's inheritance problem with her head held high. After all, there's a good chance their love was mutual, unlike with Mom. Even if she knows she's his mistress, she might also be proud to be his true wife. That is an insult to Mother. Yeah. However, everyone knows that this was a political marriage decided upon by the elders among his relatives. Because of that, it definitely wouldn't be strange for him to have a mistress. The family sank after the Great Kanto earthquake, and Father was set up as the Ushiromiya family head against his will. However, in the beginning, the elder relatives treated Kinzo like a dummy and influenced him powerfully, almost like he was a puppet. He wasn't permitted to decide anything by himself, not even his marriage partner. Ever since he met that golden witch Beatrice in those distant days, Kinzo's legend of the gold was quickly embellished into something dramatic. In other words, it could mean that Kinzo really did find a woman he loved. He also knew the whole story. Even if they weren't marriage partners, it wouldn't have been odd for her to consider herself her true wife inside of her heart. And now the person registered as his true wife was already dead. Which means she might feel confident staking her claim, not just for the rights to his assets, but regarding the battle over the headship too. I see. I'm starting to see the purpose of this letter. The headship goes to the one who solves the riddle. Is that what that means? Even if that mistress was added to the family ranking system, she isn't a direct relative of Father, so she'd be inferior even to the children. In other words, she'd be one step below Rosa in rank. That wouldn't be a good position to enter the battle for the headship from. I see. So that's it. If someone can solve the witch's riddle, they'll get the headship, regardless of rank. In other words, the most advantageous condition Beatrice could possibly get, since she's got no chance otherwise. The revival of the Ushiromiya family was made possible by the gold Beatrice had bestowed. That was quite a distinguishing service she had provided. She had built the wealth together with Kinzo, so it was natural that she would think of herself as one who should inherit it. It would also be natural for her to despise the thought of giving it up to the children of the wife Kinzo never loved. How could she be so impudent? Even if such a mistress actually exists, joining in on the battle for the rights of the head's inheritance would be a reckless action, far above her place. What disregard for her own position? Natsu turned red, her fists quivering. She had also come into the Ushiromiya register due to a complicated circumstance. Those who knew that understood more or less why she was so angry for the sake of Kinzo's dead wife. Well, thanks to that reckless action of hers, we all have an even chance now, right? Father's even given his silent approval. Will the person who succeeds in the Ushiromiya family be his mistress, Beatrice? Or one of us, the relatives that he doesn't love? Maybe he wants to make us struggle to see who's worthy. As Ava giggled roguishly, Kraus shrugged his shoulders and looked away. However, since she's the one who brought this rule to light in the first place, maybe that means it gives her a significant advantage. That's right. In the first place, if Beatrice meant that letter literally, then she's Father's alchemist. In other words, she's the manager of his gold. It wouldn't be strange at all to think she knew where it was hidden, wouldn't it? Isn't that harsh? It's like she's giving us a riddle she already knows the answer to. She'll probably show up rudely, say, "Hey, here's the answer. I'll take the headship now," and snatch everything away from us. That's right. The person who brings up a riddle always knows the answer. There's good chance that this is all a trap to steal everything away from us. If you think about it like that, don't you start to doubt whether she really had any gold in the first place? Why would she tell us about it? Hey, Mango. All she has to do is keep quiet and embezzle it. It really is strange. It certainly was the case. And the epitaph showed the way the hidden gold. Why would she challenge them and try to solve it? If they actually did solve it, wouldn't the gold all be stolen from her? Could it be that this person was trying to stir the siblings up so they'd solve the epitaph? Then she planned to steal it away at the last second? It was an extremely logical possibility. No. If you spin the chessboard around, oh God, there might actually be a pretty good chance that they actually do have the gold. Why are you so certain? Wait, Aniki. Kiri, please continue. Why do you think that? After all, do you really think we'll let go of the Ushimiya family headship? Just because someone tells us the answer to the riddle in the witch's epitaph? We'll be so impressed by their answer that we'll just give up? Well, no, that's true. No way they're being that naive that they assume we just give up after being told the answer to a riddle. That we just say, here you go, and hand it over. Of course, the headship of the Ushimiya family is not something that can be handed over so easily. That's it exactly. No matter how Beatrice may one-sidedly propose a game like this, even if she were to spectacularly show us the answer, there's no way we'd obediently hand over the headship. In other words, unless she has compelling force in the form of challenging us to a game with equal conditions for us all, this really won't count as a game. You're right. Unless the losers have no choice but to give up on the headship because of a compelling force, this won't really count as a game. And what might this compelling force be? Would they bind us in chains and threaten us into handing over the headship? I see. I get it. They just have to do something to make us want to give up the headship willingly. Yes, I see. To do that, Beatrice would have to own 10 tons of gold. I see. I get it too. In other words, it's a trade offer. Huh? What do you mean? A trade? Trade what? The Ushimiya family headship for the hidden gold. Beatrice surely plans to tell us the location of the 10 tons of gold and use that as a bribe to gain the Ushimiya family headship. Wait, ridiculous. You want to trade the headship of this glorious family for money? That's blasphemy. Blasphemy against this family. Please listen without getting mad. About how much wealth does this glorious family have right now? Are we really that affluent? The definition of affluence is not dependent on property. It's about heart. Our financial situation has nothing to... Kraus interrupted Nazi as she started to go on and on emotionally. In this situation, the more she went on like that, the worse it would actually sound. Me aside, I hear your current situations are quite unfavorable. Oh, really? Trade D's? I've heard that your I've heard that your financial situation is really bad too. Offering up more and more as collateral for new money to gamble with. Repeatedly dabbling in new gambles, unable to accept your losses. If we count what's going on behind the scenes, you're in even bigger financial straits than the rest of us. How much money have you lost, Nissan? You have no talent. Who are you saying has no talent? And what do you mean financial straits? Nazi became indignant once more, but Kraus raised his hand again and interrupted her. Seems you are making a small mistake. Business is not something that can be judged based on current progress alone. For someone with long-term outlook on business, such as myself, it may sometimes appear at a glance that I have suffered significant short-term losses. Aniki, we've been collecting evidence. Your position right now is not one to be proud of. So this is what Kiri's trying to say. Every one of us has got money trouble. Beatrice has 10 tons of gold. As the only person who knows the location of those 10 tons of gold, Beatrice is planning on using us to force to sell the headship. But how much is 10 tons of gold worth? Rough estimate, let's say 2 billion yen? No. 20 billion yen? With that much piled up, we'd be ecstatic to accept her as the successor. $20 billion yen. The scene returned to silence. In fact, the rain and wind felt even noisier now. It was probably the sound of the wind stream racing through the insides of their mind. This isn't funny. To think we'd give up on the headship to some woman of doubtful origin, just because she had a little money stored up? Don't be stupid. The headship wasn't even yours in the first place, right? We got nothing to lose and money to gain. We'll have to calculate our profit and loss, but it's something worth listening to. They knew that Kraus had eaten up much of the Ushimiya family assets, so it was dregs that remained of the inheritance versus the cost of being accepted as the head that Beatrice would pay. It was a shame, but honestly, the former was less enticing than the latter. Okay, well, it probably wouldn't end up for equal portions. Since Aniki would be giving up his position of successor, his portion would have to be larger. Makes me feel kind of jealous, you know? Dear, the amount of money isn't the problem, right? Your cowardly younger siblings are trying to sell the glory of the Ushiromiya family for money. Don't you see? Why aren't you displaying your dignity as the oldest son? Natsuhi, stay quiet for a while. Dear? Here we go again with Kraus. This is a dizzying proposal. We are each planning on getting 250 million yen out of Aniki. That witch treats us with 10% of those 10 tons? That's 2 billion. Yeah. That'd mean she's treating us with 10 times our original goal. That alone would be more than enough for us. It's not like I've got any attachment to the Ushiromiya name. I'd happily sell it off. Even if 10 tons is a slightly optimistic figure, yes, it'd still be a fascinating prospect for us. We were trying to form an alliance among the siblings to kick this outsider called Beatrice out. But if this is her plan, it'll tear apart the unity between us. By this point, we can state it clearly. The goal of Beatrice's letter was to disturb our alliance. The 3 younger siblings, who never had anything to do with the inheritance, were paid enough money to satisfy them. They would happily accept Beatrice as the next head. A moat had been dug around Kraus. In that case, the negotiations would be one-on-one between her and Kraus. He tried to look strong, but his financial and political situation was extremely weak. He might bluff in front of his siblings, but on the inside he was considering entering negotiations, depending on the sum of money involved. Sorry, I'm yawning, I'm tired. I'm not going to go much longer. I'm probably going to do like another hour. I just wanted to get a little bit in before I went on my trip. In order to bury his losses, Kraus had taken advantage of the fact that Kinzo had shut himself up in his room and had embezzled Kinzo's personal assets. Therefore, when Kinzo died and the inheritance was distributed, Kraus's situation would probably be investigated. But if he gave up his seat as the head to Beatrice, he would also receive rights to the assets, and as a result, the distribution of her inheritance to the siblings would not occur. In other words, Kraus's embezzlement might not have been made known to the other siblings. Of course, the siblings were frightened of Kinzo, but it was doubtful whether they still actually respected him as a father. By this time, they each had their own families, their own wealth, and their own lives. If they were paid enough money in exchange for Rokonshima, the wreckage of Kinzo's dreams, there was a significant likelihood that they'd relinquish the family name. In other words, Beatrice's victory was already guaranteed in this game. Not as the winner of Beatrice's game, but as the winner of Kinzo's game. Kinzo once ordered that the epitaph be put on display, and until today no one had solved it. But Beatrice solved it. In other words, this is less of a game and more of her declaration of victory. However, Kairi still thought there might be a catch. If this was a declaration of victory, Beatrice would only have to display the gold openly and state her intent to buy the inheritance. And yet, she's gone through all this trouble of telling the siblings to try to solve the epitaph. Why did she set up this new game where she'd agreed to hand over the gold and inheritance to the solver? I butchered that, sorry. I was reading something else. Kiri tried spinning the chessboard around several times. She searched for the sort of ideal strategy Beatrice might be after, something that could lead to this kind of thinking. In the end, she reached a single conclusion. Could it be arrogance? Or maybe she's playing? What are you talking about? The witch sent us a letter of challenge, forcing us to try and solve the epitaph. She might be taking us lightly, thinking we could never solve it. However, at the very least, there ought to be an extremely small chance that we do. After all, we have here 4 of Father's children by blood, right? The questioner called together 4 blood relatives who, if they tried frantically to work together and avoid having those assets stolen from them, might come across the answer of the riddle by chance. The reason the witch had a superior position in negotiations compared to the siblings was that only she knew the location of the hidden gold. But if the hiding place was exposed to someone other than her, her advantage would crumble. In short, Beatrice gains nothing but risk by writing this witch's letter of challenge. Of course, it might have had the effect of spilling apart the siblings' alliance, or splitting apart the siblings' alliance. But if that was her only goal, why would she take this risk, however slight it may be? That seems reckless to me. But if we keep in mind a certain type of emotion, that risk becomes more comprehensible. And you're saying that's arrogance? Yes. That's right. When people have an overwhelming advantage, they tend to get arrogant. And when they do, they want to show off that advantage to the losers, so they sometimes take on small risks. This is actually also in line with Beatrice's characterization in previous parts. The moderate amount of risk adds a little spice to the joy of victory. It'd be boring to win without any risk. I understand. I like that kind of thing too. Yeah, I understand it well. I thought of a new plausible explanation for the true motive behind Beatrice's letter, but I think this really might be the truth. The emotion hidden behind that letter was arrogance. Arrogance. She's trying to throw her weight around, looking down on us, as if there's no way we could figure out such a difficult epitaph. It might even be possible, if surprising, that the epitaph wasn't written by Father, but by her. Yo, what up, Evan? Sounds great. Solve the riddle of the epitaph, she says. If only I solved it, I would be made the head, right? I'll solve it. I'll accept the witch's challenge. And if those other idiot siblings could solve it, as if, I'll solve it by myself, and then I'll prove that I'm the one who's fit to succeed the Ushiromiya family. I'll take that challenge. I will. I will solve this riddle. Alright, shatter the glass. I'm going to take an ad break, shut off the pre-rolls. You already know the drill. We've done this 15 times now. Back, don't go anywhere. Was the girl her inner monologue? Yes, that was her as a child. So as a child, Ava, like, that's childhood Ava, who really didn't like being treated with disrespect for being a woman. And so, yeah, that's her inner drive to beat Kraus, basically. Yeah, I'm going to do a quick ad break. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm back. We got 2 minutes ad break. We can chill for a minute. Oh man, I'm so sleepy, yo. It has been a heck of a week. It's Wednesday, Captain. I know, right? I'm literally, what a week, eh? It's Wednesday, Captain. I am I am workload maxing, but I am dipping out of work early tomorrow to drive up to Kira and Suzu's. At least it's not Tuesday. No. Yeah. Fair. I'm very excited to play in the Grand Archive Regionals this weekend and next weekend. I really hope I do good. If I don't do good, I'll be a little bummed. But I can't be too bummed. Gotta try my hardest. Try to make some good plays. Some good plays. I went to locals yesterday. You've played so much Umineko, I believe. You know what? You're so right. I think the Umineko... Yeah, you know what? I'll just spin the chessboard around. I just need to make sure I'm well rested, honestly. That's like always my biggest problem with stuff like that is I have to make sure I'm well rested. I see. So she's not a witch, but a mistress named Beatrice who lived on the island. So there can be more than 18 people? Which means I can defeat the line of reasoning that says any crime is impossible for all 18 people must involve magic. This is a big scoop. Bro, it ain't. Pardon me. Butler-sama, would you like some black tea and cookies? Beto's butler, who called himself Renove, appeared out of nowhere. A plate set on a silver tray that he held was filled with delicious-looking steaming black tea and cookies. I really don't like this guy's smile. For some reason, it doesn't seem like a smile used to warmly greet a guest. It feels like he's mocking me somehow. I don't know if he really takes me for an idiot, or if it's just a joke or something, but it's really irritating me. I don't need any. I'm busy. Leave me alone. Oh my. Such a shame, and the cookies were so delicious too. Cooked so wonderfully that they would be wasted on a mere human. I'll eat some when I feel like it. Just set it down somewhere and get it out of here. Will that be acceptable? Then I shall do so. You may eat them when they get cold and stale, and then regret to the fullest that you did not eat them while they were fresh. Hey, you're really annoying. Well, at least you're better than Beto, who keeps doing that creepy cackle right next to my ear. Yes, that is quite true. There are times when Milady's laughter becomes quite undignified. Every time I hear it, I find it painful to comprehend. Why such a noble demon as myself must serve such a master. Man, you're weird. If you don't like it, then could you just not work for her? Me every day of my life about my job. And yet, to continue serving furniture is furniture's joy. Hi, Mike. If we do not serve, we would hardly be furniture. Setting that aside, how has the game been proceeding? Just now, you seem to have found some useful information that quite pleased you. Personally, I would not renew my work contract with the demon who holds my soul, but that's just me. Well now, I wonder what your shallow wit has conjured up. As Renove mocked me and giggled, he followed my earlier words literally and placed the black tea and cookies in a random spot nearby. In any case, it appears you are now more confident in the existence of a 19th person, yes? Would you be gracious enough to allow me to hear your opinion? Dude, he's an agent of Beatrice, don't tell him. I'm just gonna say it again in front of Beto anyways. Well, okay, and if that's the case, you know, do you? No reason to hide it. Basically, it looks like there's a hidden mansion somewhere on the island, and that grandfather had his mistress living there. So the question that's been torturing me about whether there are 18 or 19 people can be easily resolved. You have driven yourself into a corner because of the dead end that you have created. Even though you deny the witch, Battler, you hold a double standard and refuse to accept that the culprit is one of the 18. The easiest way to deny the witch would be to suspect one of the 18. It isn't easy to gather alibis for every one of them. You always find at least one person with a fragile alibi. I could probably continue to deny the witch forever if I just use that person as a scapegoat. However, I refuse to do that. It's useless. It's all useless. Every one of those 18 people is either a parent, a relative, or a cousin to me. And those reliable servants who are sometimes serious and sometimes fun to be with, I won't let myself use any of them as a scapegoat. In the past, my resolve wavered. That's how Beto hit me where my heart was weak. Accepting and understanding one's own weaknesses. It's not something that can often be accomplished. Battler, you use this theory about a 19th... You use this theory as a 9th... You use this theory about a 19th person as a spear. Or should I say, a shield. In any event, in contrast to how unprepared you were in the previous games, the fact that you now have a compass bearing on how to fight is a dramatic leap forward, let us say. With this, you can suspect a 19th person and pursue your theory that the culprit is a human, without having any doubt of the 18 you love and respect. That's it exactly. Like in the first game, when Cannon was killed in the boiler room, there were plenty of tricks I could have mentioned without hesitation, as long as a 19th person existed. Yeah, but you lost the last game when there was a 19th person. In the very first game, Cannon was killed in the boiler room. One might think that he was attacked by Kumasawa, who had gone down in the boiler room with him. Or maybe that someone who had appeared to be dead earlier was actually faking and had ambushed him. Either way, it's a move that forced me to suspect one of the 18. However, by simply proposing that a 19th person existed, there was no longer any need to suspect one of the 18 in the boiler room. I think we've gone over this though, haven't we? Like, there was a 19th person that made an appearance last time, and he still, like, bombed. In short, I can at least deny that line of reasoning, saying that if something is impossible for every one of the 18, therefore the culprit is a witch. Using this argument is easy to explain. For example, the problematic case that has already occurred in this game. Who gave Maria the letter? Even if all 18 people have alibis, I could easily explain everything by saying there is a 19th person who visited her and gave her the letter. A 19th person, a witch. I'd say that's quite a good move. Now, how would I strike back against it? You still have plenty of weak points, even if you are aware of them. Maybe the 18-person attack will be an effective move. To judge the strength of your defense, it may be an amusing contest at that point. It may be amusing to contest that point again. I am butchering this. Then how will you do it, Demon Butler? Oh, banger. I believe it would be appropriate to ambush the piece representing this 19th person that you mentioned. Battler, you have never met this 19th person, yes? Would you please show some proof that this person exists? Hi, how's the playthrough been? Pretty good. How you doing, Ellie? I'm tired today, so I'm butchering a lot of the words, but we're chilling on episode 3. How naive. Of course I knew you'd probably try that move. My. Please, respond. I sent you my 19th person theory. Please respond. Witches and demons and the like. There's no more fitting move for you guys to use. It's one of those. Oi, devil's proof. This chess game is still the same chess game that it's always been on the board. They have one picture of a chess game. It would actually be cool if they actually, like, changed the chess game. Oh, wait, actually, it's black to move, right? This is the game that, like, Kinzo and Genji were playing, or Nanjo, maybe. If it's black to move, this is a shitty situation. If it's white to move, I feel like Queen F2 is, like, really strong. But I digress. When you try to make a claim that some humans like us, we always have a counterattack by telling you to show some proof. Because that's a human move. But I'm fighting with a witch. I'm taking part in a battle with someone who isn't human. As some moves exist that can only be used in a game against a witch. There are cheap moves. Cheap? And that's what this devil's proof is. The devil's proof is cheap because it's impossible to prove. Let's assume that there's a hidden mansion on this island, separate from the Ushirumiya family mansion, and that woman named Beatrice lives there. In order to prove this, one must find that mansion and actually bring her out of it. That's called actual proof in the human world. However, if we follow the rules of the devil's proof, you can't deny that she exists. even if there's no proof that she does, because it's impossible to prove that something doesn't exist. That's right, I'm finally able to turn the tables using this devil's proof, which tormented me so much before. Those guys were always trying to force me to accept the existence of the witch with it. After all, it was physically impossible for me to show any proof that witches don't exist to deny Beto's claims. That's why I kept getting hit with the reckless argument that witches do exist, and was unable to counterattack. And that's why I'll spin the chessboard around right now. I can't disprove the existence of witches, then that means, if I suggest that a 19th human exists, you can't deny that either. In other words, because the problematic and mysterious mistress is craftily hiding herself, it's hard to say, if it'd be perfectly natural if you never found her no matter how hard you looked. The classic unfalsifiable hypothesis trick? Classic. So you can't say that your inability to find this 19th person proves that she doesn't exist. Therefore, it is impossible to deny that the 19th person exists. Beto used the devil's proof to make denying her own existence impossible, but this time it's become my weapon. If we can get away with this argument, then forget just a 19th person. The island could be full of people we don't know about. And even if there were 10 or 100 of them, she still couldn't deny that they existed. In the last game and the one before that, among the murder scenes that showed up, there were several that were extremely intricate and must have taken a lot of effort to set up. It's really hard to imagine that a single culprit set all of those up. However, if not just the 19th person, but 10 or 100 additional people were hiding somewhere, that wouldn't be any problem at all. If they all split up the work, they could handle any job in a short period of time. Of course, doubts will naturally arise as to whether a large group of people like that could sneak around the mansion without being noticed, but those are all settled by the devil's proof. You can't deny that even 100 people were there just because they weren't seen or noticed. Even though I'm saying it myself, it's such a stupid argument that it makes me want to throw up. However, because it's such a dirty move, it's a perfect one to use against a witch. Well, this is just my imagination, but what if about 100 specific men wearing goat masks were hidden in the shadows? Something like that's worse than laughable, almost like they're cockroaches. If you see one, it means there's 100 more hiding somewhere. Well, I do think it's a ridiculous argument that's horribly twisted. If my opponent were human, I'm sure they'd yell at me like I was out of my mind. But my opponent is a witch. And after all, that's the kind of competition we're having, isn't it? I'll use any kind of reckless argument to explain it using humans and deny the witch. Here I go cheating again. Anyway, with this move, I won't have to doubt any of the 18 who are close to me again. I won't suffer a defeat like last time. Naruhodo. You have learned from your previous defeats. That's good. It's no surprise that you've become so devious now that you're in your third game. You first strengthen your own defense. That is truly a solid first step. Quite a spectacular move, I would say. Well, even if we do assume there's a 19th person, there are still a few tricks left that I can't resolve, like the actual number of master keys, no matter how many humans I add. Still, it isn't as bad as the first step, for the time being. Well, she could just bring out the red text to say there's only 18... Oh, she hasn't used red text to say there's only 18 people on the island, though. She could probably combat this, though, by using red text to say there are 19 people on the island, if there's only one additional person. But that's probably false, too. Because we know at least, there's probably like 12 additional people on the island. Beatrice herself, Renove, all of the stakes, some goats. There's a lot of people on the island. Battler, your trump card is the important piece called the 19th person. You countered my move of asking where the proof was by using the devil's proof. A good skirmish. Although, I must apologize for making my move by myself when Milady isn't here. I find that I too am growing slightly interested. I wonder if you will allow me to make yet another move on Milady's behalf. Some goats like Battler? So true. Let's have it. I've got no shortage of opponents, be they witches or demons. The move you presented called the Devil's Proof is a specialty of us demons, but there are also various other moves available to us. Do you know of a move called Skibbity's Toilet? Hempel's Raven? Hempel's Raven? What are you talking about? Ooh. Yeah, it's a rule they established is that anything that is said in red is true. was yes. Red text is accepted as true, no proof required. Is a rule of the game. Just then, the enraging laugh that I've heard so many times started echoing. And the room was filled with dazzling golden butterflies, and in the center of that whirlwind, the golden witch appeared. If it isn't milady. Good morning. Good morbing. I thought you might be doing something interesting while I was away. Hempel's raven, was it? Such a familiar old move, I almost laugh. To think the day has come when I get to show it off to Battler. It's a classic move we use against the Devil's Proof. Hempel's raven. Burge arrive? Ronov, I will make this move. Do not get in the way of my fun. So you finally show up, you guffawing witch? Burge leave? I see you're laughing like a freak like usual. This guy was talking behind your back just now, telling me how undignified you look when you do that. Right? Is that true? How would you defeat the Devil's Proof? You would either show it. You would show it. How do you I'm just trying to think out loud. How would you defeat the Devil's Proof? What is Hempel's Raven? Hempel's Raven. Is it like the crows in Dead by Daylight that are moving around when you move around? Let's find out. Why would I speak such gossip about my lady, whom I regard in such sincere respect? Can't believe you'd say something so shameless. Doesn't it look like we'll be getting along well together? Well, that's fine. Let us return to the point at hand. Hempel's Raven is used to show actual proof using the contrapositive. Contrapositive? The reference to Testament's Crow from Guilty Gear? Eternal Curse. Understandable. It's a reference to Storm Crow, a 0/1 with flying for 2 mana. In other words, it's a move like this. Contrapositive. I haven't heard contrapositive in forever. What must you do to prove that ravens are black? Huh? What are you talking about? Prove that ravens are black? Wouldn't you just have to catch a raven and check to see if it's black? That's right. You must simply prove that a raven equals black. Oh. So versus the Devil's Proof of saying you can't prove that there isn't a 19th person on the island, she could respond by saying, well, you have to prove that this 19th person is a person and not a witch. You see that? If you instead prove that birds aren't black, are not ravens, you would reach... If you instead prove that birds are not black equals they are not ravens, you would reach the same argument. So if you go throughout the world and examine all birds that are not ravens and prove that none of them are black, then as a result, you can claim that therefore, black birds are ravens. No? To prove that a raven equals black, assume that not black equals not raven. Then go through the world and look at all the birds that are not ravens. And since not, but you could just argue on top of that no birds are black. Even if you saw every bird in the world, and hypothetically a raven existed, and you saw every bird but a raven and none of them were black, you still don't, that still does not prove that ravens are black. Because by this string of logic, you could say that no birds are black. Now, black birds would be ravens, but there might just be no such thing as a black bird. This is called an argument by the contrapositive. Is that too difficult for you? Yeah, no kidding. I've got an idea of what you're saying. Battler, what about this example? Let us say that you have 2 boxes, and one of them is a winner with a cookie inside. Hog? Of course, the other one is a loser and is empty. For example, here are the 2 boxes. Where one has a cookie inside means you win, and the other's empty means you lose. At this moment, it has a cookie inside equals you win, which implies that you do not win equals it had no cookie inside. So it depends if these are actual equality statements, if they're actual, like, both ways equal statements, or if they're if-then statements. Because if these are if-then statements, if it has a cookie, you win, does not mean if you did not win, it doesn't have a cookie, right? Because you could say, like, you can't switch those statements unless that's an equal statement on both sides. In other words, if it has a cookie inside, you win. And if you win, it has a cookie inside. If both of those are true, then you can say, if you did not win, then there was no cookie inside. Right? It has to go both ways. So in the ravens are black example, if a raven is a black bird, and if a black bird is a raven, then by examining all the other ravens in the birds in the world and finding no black birds, then you could probably prove it. If it's a raven, then it's black. If a bird is not black, it's not a raven. In theory, if you prove the second one, you prove the first. If a bird is not black, it is... Yes. Actually, that's correct. But that doesn't mean... No, that's not necessarily true. If it is a raven... Oh, no, that's true. I'm sorry. Your statement is true. If a bird is not black, it is not a... But it's only if the first is true, then the second carries. Because if we say, if a bird is not black, it is not a raven. You could say, if a bird is raven, it is... If a bird is a raven, it is black. But you could not say, if a bird is black, then it is a raven. No, you could. Hold on. There's a way... God, I'm confusing myself now. You would say... Essentially, the idea that they're trying to do here is, if the person... Wait. I'm just going to see what they say. When a relationship exists, your statement is correct, but that doesn't get us to... There might just be no blackbirds. Like, ravens might just not exist in that argument. And that's kind of, they're trying to use that to do the witch theory, where if a 19th person exists, then therefore they're a witch, because if the 19th person exists, then there's not a witch, whatever. You're going to say, well, if the 19th person exists, they have to be a witch. Oh. And then Battler's going to be stuck, because he's going to either have to say the 19th person doesn't exist. No, you could say witches don't exist, right? Yeah, they're trying to corner him into saying... Either there is no 19th person, or that 19th person has to be a witch. Then if A then B is true, then if not B, then not A is also true. That's correct. If they're if-then statements, yes. That's obvious. If the one you guessed was the loser, then you'd automatically know the other one was a winner. In other words, if you chose the box at random, whether it's a winner or loser, you'll be able to figure out which box proof is satisfied. By the way, I've read this scene like 3 times now, and I'm pretty sure they're using equals and yeah, I think it is too. I think they're using that as if A, then B. And not, yeah, it's math, right? Naru math. When a math person reads something like that, and they're treating it like an equivalency, when in fact it's an if-then statement, which makes it a little more readable. Yeah, Naru math. You can directly prove that this box is the winner equals this box has a cookie in it. See, this is the one. If this box is the winner, then this box has a cookie in it. If this box is a winner, then it has a cookie. That works if you read it as an if-then. But it doesn't account for this edge case that I'm having trouble expressing in words that I know exists. There's an edge case with this raven shit. That's like, essentially the TLDR is ravens aren't real. And that is a possibility in your statement. Your statement is on the supposition that a raven exists. And that's not accounted for. However, if the box you open is empty, then the reverse. Hempel's raven is satisfied. In other words, the box does not have a cookie in it equals this box is not the winner. As long as we accept the premise that there are no more than 2 boxes. Exactly. You have to accept the premise that one of these boxes is actually a winner. In other words, you have to accept the possibility that somebody is actually a witch in the real scenario. The contrapositive shows that the other box is automatically the winner. Again, the other box is automatically the winner if there is a winner. So we're going to do this with the 19th person, right? They're going to say, if the 19th person exists, they are human. And then you take the contrapositive and say, if there is no human, if they are not human, they are not the 19th person. Something like that. I think I'm starting to see your reasoning. Only poison can stop poison. Only twisted logic can stop twisted logic. Then what? How does this overturn the claim that because there's definitely a 19th human hidden on the island, even if all 18 people have alibis, I still won't have to accept witches? Very well. I will teach you about my move. First of all, you are stating that the culprit is not among the 18 equals the culprit is a 19th person. Sure. Ah. The culprit is not among the 18. Ah, you're throwing a not in there, though. So if you use the contrapositive, it looks like this. The culprit is not a 19th person. The culprit is one of the 18. The culprit is not a 19th person, then it must be one of the 18. If we say the culprit is not one of the 18, then it is a 19th. This is correct. This makes sense. This is correct. What do you mean? Only that I've countered your move. Let's try and keep things simple. Ronov, explain. Seems you've made things easy enough for Battler to understand with your cookie in a box. Then forgive my presumption. Allow me to explain my earlier example once more. 2 treasure boxes, one of each has a cookie in it. In this situation, you have an 18-person box and a 19th person box. So the cookie represents the culprit. Battler, let's say you open the 18th person box. Because the cookie is not there, you have paradoxically proven that therefore, the cookie is in the 19th person's box. That lets us make an even more paradoxical claim. In other words, if it was first shown that the 19th person's box was empty, that would prove at the same time that the cookie is in the 18th person box. Battler played this move in order to avoid having to doubt any of the 18, but now has been used to prepare an 18-person attack. So now if Beatrice says in red, the crime was not committed by a 19th person, it would force Battler to assume the 18, but he could just be super stubborn and say, yeah, it wasn't a 19th person, it was a 20th and a 21st and a 22nd. I'll go first and prove that the inside of the 19th box is empty. You will automatically have to accept that. The cookie is in an 18th person box. All I've done is say it the other way around, yes? This is true, and again, it's on the presumption that there are only 19 people and not more than 19 people. If there were more than 19 people, this falls apart. Where if you say there's a 19th person, but simultaneously prove their innocence, you don't have a checkmate there. So the move I was confident in was actually a double-edged sword? Kind of. As soon as you played that move and attempted to explain everything with a 19th person, you'd already taken out a risk that you might be forced to accept that the culprit was one of the 18. Sure. That's fair. That always exists. I see. Hempel's Raven. So this is a countering technique? Well, if I really think about it, that counter is really disadvantageous for me. This isn't a cookie we're talking about. I imagine that the loser treasure chest actually has a bomb in it. It gets even clearer. And there just aren't two treasure chests. Then there aren't just 2 treasure chests, but 18 plus 1 more for the 19th person. To think of it as a total of 19 boxes, it gets a little easier to picture. First off, one of the premises of the human culprit theory is that the bomb will definitely be in one of these boxes. Which is true, there is a bomb in one of the boxes. There just might be way more than 19 boxes. I don't want to place the bomb in the boxes for any of the 18, so I used the devil's proof, and created the 19th person box so I could throw the bomb in there. That much was fine. But then Beto struck back. Now, if the contents of the 19th box are empty, that'll automatically mean that the bomb is in one of the other 18. No, Battler, just make another guy. Invent a guy. Log on to twitter.com, invent a guy to get mad at, and put them in the 20th box. I could examine what's inside all 18 of these boxes, and as long as I show that the bomb isn't in any of them, I'll still be able to safely show that the 18 are innocent. If that were possible, I might have nothing to fear. However, in reality, that'll be almost absolutely impossible. The police wouldn't come here in this typhoon. We don't have any access to scientific investigations or experts or anything. In short, we can't prove anything decisively. It'll be impossible for me to find any proof other than simply gulping down whatever alibis each of the 18 give. That means I personally have to prove their innocence and have to do it perfectly. Like by staying with them the whole time, never letting them out of my sight for a second. By doing that, I could probably be sure of that person's innocence. Sure that the bomb isn't in their box. However, in practical terms, that'll be impossible. In other words, I'd have to expend an incredible effort just to check the contents of one box. And there are 18 of them. In other words, unless I bound all 18 of them in chains and then watched over them, it'd be impossible to prove that all of them have empty boxes. However, Beata only has to open one box, the 19th, and show that it is empty to prove that the bomb's in one of the other 18. Furthermore, there's no need for her to show which of the 18 boxes has the bomb. I've got 18 times more work to do to explain my pet theory than Beatrice does for hers. There's also no shame in suspecting one of the 18 if it proves that there's no witch, right? Like, yeah, it sucks. I mean, I don't know, maybe hot take here, but I feel like Battler's already gone through 2 lives. He's already died twice and has been made to serve Beatrice for all eternity. What do you got to lose by just, like, assuming George did it and just hammer on that George did it? I mean, like, whatever, right? Like, I guess he's got pride and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, are you just gonna scoop? Like, when there's 18 possible people to just suspect freaking Genji? He's sus as hell. Like, yeah, he's nice. Suspect Kinzo. Shit, everyone hates Kinzo. Why not suspect Kinzo? When a devil's proof exists in the world, it takes a vast amount of effort to argue against it, and there are many cases in which it is impossible to do so because of the situation. However, Hempel's Raven turns that problem around and makes it possible to prove things easily. I don't like Hempel's Raven, dude. I think it's kind of cheesy. By using Hempel's Raven, various reckless arguments tend to become possible to prove true or false. For example, let's say I make the proposal, all humans except me are foolish. Normally, I would have to examine all of humanity except myself and show that they are all foolish. However, in reality, it would be impossible to investigate billions of people. It's just the same sort of effort you need to open all 18 boxes. However, by using Hempel's Raven, the contrapositive of that supposition would change it into this. If you, to use your phrase, spin the chessboard around and claim that all humans except me equal foolish, you would have to do nothing more than prove that not foolish equals me. No, dude. No, now it's pissing me off. You're in this closed-ass system that you are inventing that has so many other variables in it. Like, if you're in the world, not foolish equals me. If you can prove not foolish equals me, that's assuming that definitively there is one singular definition of not foolish. First of all, it's such a subjective criteria. And secondly, that's not saying that there's only one not foolish human in the world. This is horrible. This is a horrible argument. Assuming she doesn't make mistakes. That's also a fair point, Sabardic. Like, she said she would make this game easier. And this might be her, like, actually being like, listen, this is a bit of a softball move. And what do you think that means? As soon as I know the fact that I am wise, I will be able to show in an instant that every one of the billions of people in the human race is foolish. It's typical freaking reactionary YouTuber. In less than a second, I could finish proving that the entire human race is more foolish than me. More foolish than me, not foolish. It is truly the strongest and fastest QED in the world. It's the scrubbiest shit I've ever seen. This Hempel's Raven. I bet if I looked up Hempel's Raven on Google, it would be like logical fallacy, Hempel's Raven. What a ridiculous argument. It's a very convenient move. Not only demons, but gods also use it. When they propose that the blessed equals the servants of God, the contrapositive is, a human is not the servant of God, he must not be blessed. Yeah, that's a classic one. That again implies that, again, the only way to be blessed is to be a servant of God. This is a good example. This says, if you are blessed, you are a servant of God. Thus, if you are not a servant of God, you are not blessed. The easiest way around that is to say, well, there are other ways to be blessed. Maybe you're blessed if you were born on a Saturday. So you could be not a servant of God, but born on a Saturday and be blessed. You got to create like a system, like a closed system to actually have if A then B equivalent to if not B then not A. Like that's not always a given based on your system and your rule set, right? So in order to prove the servants of gods are blessed with divine protection, they only have to bring ill fortune down upon the people who don't receive such protection. So by bringing misfortune down upon those who don't believe in them, they prove their blessedness. An enormous cost is required to give humans happiness. However, it takes a lot less to bring humans misfortune. Yeah, you could talk about logic like this. So by using Hempel's Raven, gods are actually giving believers the joy of divine protection for cheap. You demon. It's a demon's argument. That's crazy. Seems we've gone off topic. Let us get back to the point. The move for the counterattack is complete. And now in response to your claim of the 19th person is the culprit, therefore, the 18 are innocent and the witch doesn't exist, I say therefore, if I can prove that the culprit is not some 19th person, we can be sure that the culprit is either one of the 18 or a witch. Now, yeah, this does change if you say instead of 19th, if you just say an additional person. But if you find an additional person that is not the culprit, that doesn't mean there's not another additional person. That's the hole in her logic here. Just if she finds a guy and says this guy is not the culprit, therefore it's one of the 18, there could just be another guy. Hi Soma, thanks for lurking. Hey Himbo, how you doing? Right? Wrong. Get her ass. Go Battler, go. Go Battler, go. Spin the chessboard. I joined during the scene. I feel perfectly in the loop. Nado hodo. For a while, I just stood there shocked, completely forgetting to close my mouth. Just when I thought I'd counter one of their strong points, their counterattack had been reckless arguments that I couldn't possibly have anticipated. Is this going to be impossible after all? To continue denying the witch on an island with no more than 18 people? And still believe the innocence of those 18 people? Is this just a delusion? Am I trying to escape reality? I'm going to go to the end of this chapter, by the way, and end. Hopefully it doesn't end like right now, but I'm going to go to the end of this chapter because I want to make sure I get sleep and chill a little bit. I got to pack still too. Or finish packing, I should say. Not yet. Don't give up in this desperate struggle yet. Who cares about whoever's Raven? They're just trying to confuse me by bringing up weird bits of trivia. I used the devil's proof. Don't feel uncertain about something you've used once. Believe in the spear you've drawn. Absolutely bad. Run that shit back. And then forcibly gouge it in. We're still in the opening part of the game. Do you plan to keep thinking on this level? Ah, wait a sec. I want to be sure. I admit, I talked about a 19th person to keep it simple. Let's go. He got it. But if we're going to use the devil's proof to raise the number of people above 18, then we'd have no way of knowing if there were 10, 100, or an indeterminate number of people. He got it. He got there. Let's go. There's always one more than you assume. Hold that shit. Get it? They countered my twisted logic with something even more twisted. So the only thing that could counter that would be even crazier twisted logic. Me when I create infinite guys? I see. Even if I somehow prove an alibi for the 19th, as soon as I do, you will think up a 20th person and claim they're the culprit. Yes, that is what I'm talking about. By repeating this endlessly, you wouldn't make it, so I kept searching for their alibis for all eternity. I see. Just like a demon king summoning a plague of locusts, I wouldn't expect anything less from Kinzo's grandchild. Looks like you have been gifted with a talent in summoning. In short, it's impossible to always prove an alibi for each person X outside of the first 18. How do you like that, Beto? Now that you know we're having a battle with twisted logic, I won't lose. Now, if she came in with the red and said, there are no more than 19 people on this island, that could still be true, even if there are only 18. She could even say there are 18 people on this island, but I think that's a lie. Right, so I think you could craft a red text. I think you could craft a red text that lands your Hempel's Raven and is still true. Now, that number might have to be like 27, because she has a lot of people probably on the island. But she might be able to say something like, there are no more than 19 people on the island in red. How foolish. Who do you think you are? I am the Endless Witch. I thought you could challenge me endlessly is absurd. Endless control means that I am able to kill endlessly. When your 19th person folds, you will summon a 20th. When your 20th person folds, you will summon a 21st. When your 21st person folds, when your 22nd person folds, you will summon 23rd person, a 34th person, 64 quadrillion, 358 trillion, 223 billion, 579 million, 673,000. I messed it up. Oh yeah, 204th person. I didn't mess it up. Pog. You are such a nerd. What? You don't want me to read the story as it's meant to be read? Did you think you'd have me at your mercy for all eternity? I laugh at infinite regress. That's my streamer. The infinite doesn't work against... Is that an infinite block string? Yes. The infinite, dude. She knows about the infinite. Soul standing slash or far slash, excuse, standing slash, what am I talking about? Soul far slash the infinite. Well then, how will you kill my endless? Just try and show me. Red text incoming. I have the power to speak the truth in red. Here it comes. When I speak in red, it will contain absolutely no illusions. If I say it once in red, there are no more than 100 people on the island. You will no longer be permitted to create a 101st person. Okay, say it. See, Battler? What truth shall I tell in red this time? Where shall I strike for the kill and force you into hopelessness? What she's gonna have to do, though, is she's gonna have to say a number that's truthful there. So if she says there's no more than, like, 23 people on the island, she's gonna have to prove a lot of innocence. Come, show me your usual frightened face. Peak. It's peak. What a good scene. Why are you laughing? I wonder what kind of creepy look I had on my face as I laughed right then. The red sure is scary. Every time it jumps out, I'm driven into the depths of hopelessness. But I've already realized something. There's no need to be overly afraid of the red. Me playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3 when my opponent pops X Factor? You've brought out your trump card again. So, how and for what will Beatrice use the red this time? Boo? Boo earns! Oh? What did you mean by that? Suddenly looking so relaxed. Sorry, but I was waiting for you to take out that blood-red treasured sword of yours. Let's see. What do you proclaim in red this time? You aren't going to say, the culprit was one of those 18 people, are you? Yeah, she can't say that. Be careful, since that'd mean self-destruction for you, right? X Factor level 3 Virgil, so you brought out your trump card again. It better be the same as throwing away your own witch theory yourself. A complete resignation. That's right. The red wasn't always a weapon that worked in Beto's favor alone. It was the other way around. If she used it the wrong way, it was dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. She used it carelessly and said something that ended up denying herself. That'd be exactly the same as self-destructing. Of course, it'd be sad and difficult for me to accept if you told me in red that one of the 18 was the culprit. No matter who the culprit actually was, I'd definitely have to deal with some tough emotions. But before that, it would mean your defeat. Saying in red that the culprit is a human is equivalent to your proclamation of resignation. You wanted us to finish each other off in a simultaneous clash. I'd say that's a pretty interesting move. Yeah, this harkens back to what I was saying, where like Battler, you know, for the care of his family and for his friends and his pride, doesn't want to suspect one of the 18. But as soon as it is one of the 18, he wins the game. There is no witch if it's one of the 18. However, this particular battle ended my victory. Beatrice's red was her true trump card. When the person speaks in red, it is definitely the truth, with no amount of proof or counter-arguments can change that. Until now, she's used this to severely wound me, and each time the tiny foundation supporting my heart gets split in half. However, if she uses it carelessly, then I can also glean a little information about the truth. In the last game, I used that to my advantage, especially during the chapel's closed room trick, and almost completely got her boxed in at one point. But she was pretty sly herself. She learned from that experience, and since then she'd started using discretion at the timing of her red. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle with real swords. This is a high-level intellectual battle. No, not an intellectual battle. This really is twisted logic. This is the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. This is a Twitter replies section. Okay, now it's time to hear your plan. That's right. Use your Hempel's Raven. First, you'll have to confirm in red how many humans there are other than the 18. And after that, if you proclaim in red that none of the people in this group are the culprit, that's right. That would mean a fatal wound to me. I'm surprised that you no longer have even an atom of fear for the red, which once terrified you so much. You're quite resilient. Try taking it out. The treasured sword, that trump card of yours. This time, you might be able to make me surrender with a single stroke, right? Interesting. I wouldn't have it any other way. Agitator, challenge her. Drive her into a corner and make her speak in red. Of course, her red's always wiping out my only rays of hope, but don't be afraid of that. On this island, overcome with falsehoods and illusions, the only thing I can trust is the information she speaks in red. It's my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. Her merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This isn't just walking on a tightrope. It's like literally walking on the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. Postmodern Umineko adaptation in the form of a 100,000 plus chain of replies and retweets. User contrapositive logic, the culprit must be human, but I didn't want to search for a culprit amid the 18. That's what made me stick to a weak position, since I had to claim both that it couldn't be a witch and that it couldn't be one of the 18. Last time, I was unable to understand that, so that's where she hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's okay. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword fighting movie that a good fortress has one and only one intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there, they would be lured there, and that is where the actual battle took place. As long as I understood my weak points, and as long as she wanted to attack those weak points, it was as if I were luring her into launching an attack there. Gauge the distance between us with care, retreating step by step. Make them move forward. The more recklessly she flourished that red, the more chances I would get to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep her cornered so that she'll have no choice but to refute me with the red, no matter how oppressively she speaks in red. That's right. That red itself is the same as fresh blood leaking from her wounds. Damn, I'm way too high to even attempt to understand at this point. Yeah. So what's wrong? First of all, why don't you tell me how many people are on this island in total? He's literally just describing whiff punishes? I know, right? If you don't, your raven can't cut me up. How surprising you can be this desperate and yet this difficult. One cannot make light of someone putting their life on the line, no matter what the era. No surprise you're Kinzo's grandchild. The more cornered you are, the bolder you become. Me trying to wall jump out of the corner as Lancelot for the 55th time. Renov cleared his throat. It appears to be a stalemate. The black tea I worked so hard to make is getting cold. Milady. Ronov, who was supposed to be her ally, roguishly rushed her into making her next move. Beto probably thought she'd manage to smile back and appear confident, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. By now, she had completely lost the confident feeling that had allowed her to turn her nose up at her worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wouldn't be cornered by something like this. She's just being cautious. Until now, I've been inexperienced. I didn't know how to fight, and I wasn't strong enough to be her opponent. However, now that we've reached the third game, she's realized that I'm starting to become more skilled. And she's grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure, that's just fine, Beatrice. Sorry to keep you waiting. Are you happy now? Now it's starting to get interesting, huh? Batura. Is she gonna say it? This isn't getting us anywhere. Then, do we get to the heart of the matter and go with the usual? Oh, the usual, you say? Then by all means. If I don't hear you say that, I guess I just won't feel like starting. The first move was mine. Here I go, Beto. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. No way she can do that. I hear you say this in red. I'll have no choice but to suspect one of the 18. I won't be able to say a 19th person did it, so all doors will be closed to me. However, I believe the culprit definitely isn't one of the 18. There's no way any of these 18 could commit such brutal murders. She has to say something like, on this island, there are no more than 20 people. Repeat it. On this island, there are only 18 people. I refuse. I won't say why. I've avoided what would have been the worst red for me. She might also be denying it because... Wait. Is she denying it because there were only 17 people on this island and Maria is a witch? Hold on now. Maybe she's denying it not because there are more people, but because there are fewer people. I've avoided what would have been the worst red for me. If she'd repeated that, I'd be faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18. Like last time all over again. Turnabout starts playing. Yeah, this song goes hard. But Beto hadn't proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She refused to repeat it, even though there was no reason for her not to strike. Even though it was not a weakness she should have been drooling at. She could say there are no more than 18 people on this island. She hadn't sliced me up with red by using that move, which should have been as good as forking a rook and the king. It's a big sign of my advantage. That's right. The culprit isn't one of the 18. I won't suspect anyone. And since the culprit isn't a witch either, it means a 19th person exists on this island. And that's you. The person who, as grandfather's mistress of 30 years, has been secretly living in a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice. That's right. You aren't a witch or anything like that. You're just a human who's been living on this island in hiding for several decades. Did you just call me, the endless witch who has lived for over 1,000 years, a human? For a while, Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly and gloatingly, or maybe spitefully. Are you ready? I'll keep going. Repeat it. There are 19 people or more on this island. She can't say that either. Beatrice fell silent once again. She'd probably remain extremely cautious as long as confirming the number of humans on this island might give her some large disadvantage, depending on the situation. The red has already become a foothold for my counterattacks. Now that we know this, it makes the red very risky for the witch. If she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's Raven wouldn't be effective. To break my devil's proof, she would need to settle the existence and number of people outside the 18 in red. That's right. She couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she used red. I've closed Beto in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really is a way to fight in this witch's game. It's okay to refuse. If you can't say it in red, that means there's a total of 18 plus X people on the island. That X is a pretty massive piece to lose on your first move, right? After all, from now on, all of the tricks that were impossible for the 18 can be explained with a human X who isn't in that group. This huge piece can break open all the rooms you said were closed because everyone had an alibi. It was just like how a chess bishop can cut a thin line through enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. It could only be effectively used on squares of the same color, but it was very good at controlling territory on the board. Looked like Beto also noticed her current plight. She couldn't just let such an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. If she pulled out her red treasured sword, it wouldn't be that difficult to save herself from this. But Beto was completely aware that I was expecting it. If she was afraid that a careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck. Because, in the first place, a witch is something that ought to be denied in red. Believe, don't doubt, witches don't exist. Something like that couldn't exist in this world. They can only exist in the valleys between truths. So I'm assuming Balatro is like popping off about how he's 10 steps ahead. Balatro? They have fragile existence, curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth. And that they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehoods and illusions. I don't think he's that far ahead. His name's Battler. I don't think he's that far ahead. I don't think this actually gets him very far. She's just gonna refuse, and like he can keep doubles proofing, but like she will find a way around that. And I think the way she finds her way around that is with what I said, where she says there are fewer than 20 people on the island. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, is the reality that might easily deny their very being. The more they brandish their red words, the more they begin to lose bit by bit the crack in truth inside which they can endure. That's why they don't want to use red words and carelessly lose the crack in truth, which is based on fuzzy. And fuzzy's mentioned? I think the red is blatantly overpowered and cannot possibly be misused unless you're a scrub, but that's just me. Or illusions, in other words. You actually can't lose with the red text if you're just trying to win a logic battle. But, you know. It's neither here nor there. That's because they understand that they're gradually being cornered. Of course, that bastard will never admit it. Because if she did, it'd be the same as admitting that she's something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Imaginary numbers exist. They're right there. Don't be afraid. Stay strong. I know that she's the one who's really been pierced to the bone. After all, her red treasured sword can't be used without a lot of preparation. Incoming red text. What's wrong? I'll say it again. Repeat it. There are 19 or more people on this island. She's going to say there are fewer than 19 people on this island. I refuse. Oh, she's refusing. At the end of Beato's worrying, she took a single deep breath quietly and announced her refusal. As though I thought she'd use it, but Beato refused to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of the game. You refuse? Which means that from now on, I can create as many fictional characters X's outside of the 18 that I want. Well, he could do that anyways if she said there were 19 or more. Unless that was unless that was a translation thing where it's basically like him saying, tell me the number above 19 that is on the island. Do as you wish. I have refused to repeat what you have told me. Isn't that enough for now? The reason for my refusal is... No. I won't tell you yet. Anyway, you'll know soon enough. I think... Okay, so get this. The two statements, Battler's two statements, there are only 18 people on the island, and there are 19 or more people on the island. Right? Those are the two statements. And you would think one of those has to be true. And her refusing both in red is her leaving it ambiguous to which one is true. Right? That's the idea there. Is like she said, I can't do one in red. Obviously, you can't do there are only 18 in red. But then she doesn't want to do, because that is GG's. But then she also doesn't want to do there are 19 or more in red because, again, I think that's not true. I don't think she's trying to not show her hand. I think literally neither of those statements is true because Maria, either in fact or just in identification, is a witch. I think she's saying there are not 18 people on the island, nor are there 19 or more, because Maria is not a person and is a witch, and therefore, or maybe you could argue maybe something a little more realistic, Shannon, Cannon, and Genji are not people, they're furniture, so there are not 18 people on the island. There are 15 people and 3 furnitures, or 14 people and 4 furnitures. I think that is why she's refusing, not to show any kind of hand here. Still acting tough, I see. Choosing not to use the red is another way of using it. You called my red treasured sword a pleasant metaphor. I will use it too. A treasured sword is at its best when it's sheathed. In fact, there are times it can instill even more fear because it is sheathed. This is good fighting game advice. That's right. As I fight, I've always had to keep in mind whether you might spin everything around with those red words. It's some pretty serious pressure. And there are also times where you make things pretty tough by refusing to repeat after me. Those times, I can't tell if you can't repeat because my guess was right, or if you're just misleading me and letting me flounder about. If you think about it that way, yeah. It's a sheathed, treasured sword. So what? If I'm gonna push you off a cliff anyways, I best let you climb a little higher first. We still have just barely begun. Much is left to come. I'll resign from this challenge. Go and get drunk on your faint victory for now, but only for now. Very curious scene there. I'm gonna have to wait 2 weeks to read more of this? Practically speaking, the early part of that game ended with her being a sore loser. Even so, I couldn't relax my guard at all. That tension didn't fade one bit, until I was greeted by the sound of Renov's applause. Spectacular, Battler-sama. Perhaps you have started the game with an advantageous development. Who knows? I still don't know whether I've taken a piece by my move, or whether she's guided me into taking it. After all, knowing you probably know I'm being led into a trap, and that clapping is just you mocking me openly, right? How could you think that? I am innocently celebrating your ability, which has enabled you to take one shot at Milady, even though it is only the first round. In any event, Milady is a person who is quick to become arrogant. I believe that a little encouragement such as this can be a good medicine every once in a while. This butler of yours sure has a vicious tongue. He does, doesn't he? Sometimes he ticks me off as well. My, how incredibly rude of me. Well then, milady, Battler, how would you like some more black tea? The game is still barely begun. Please allow me to prepare all the tea and snacks needed to adorn this game. He hates Beatrice. I ask that you continue your game without any reservations. I will. Let's move forward. Now is where it really starts. Very well. Let us advance the clock. Ronov, black tea, please. Certainly. How about a cookie? I don't need one. Give it to Beelzebub to keep her happy. Remain silent for now. While listening to the sound of the demon butler pouring tea, the witch closed her eyes slightly and fell silent. For some time she was deeply lost in thought, but eventually a roguish glint came to her eyes. Very well. There are 19 or fewer people on this island. Why don't I inform you now as to why I refused to speak in red during the first move? What? Bring it on. Show me what you've got. Yes, that piece really was big enough that I'd hate losing it. It may be hasty, but allow me to make my move. I won't use the red, but from here on, Rosa will explain on my behalf. Listen. Rosa. I'm scared. Of course I think the same way. Rosa does too, right? Rosa? Ah, sorry. Me too. I think that too. What's wrong, Rosa? You've been really quiet for a while now. Are you feeling sick? From the beginning, Rosa had never been one to cut in on the siblings' fights. But even so, she seemed unmotivated. And he had said almost nothing during this night's conference. The whole time she had hung her head and appeared to be thinking of something else. You've been in a daze for a while now. Do you think you can protect that inheritance like that? The mother of your child. You are the mother of your child, so get a stronger hold on yourself. I'm sorry. Did you wake up really early this morning? If you feel sick, you shouldn't overdo it. The beds in the guest room have been prepared. How about taking a rest? I will guide you. No, I'm fine. Thank you. What is it? Is there something you're worrying about? No, not really. Is that so? Feels like your mind has been elsewhere this whole time. I wonder if that has anything to do with what we've been talking about. At those words, everyone stared at Rosa together. As if in response, Rosa's shoulders quivered. Apparently, Kairi's guess hadn't been wrong. Rosa couldn't deny it either. No, She swallowed whatever it was she had been trying to say and was silent again. Of course, the other siblings also began to realize that something about her appearance was different from usual. What is it? You've been weird for a while. Did you think of something? We all just swore to remain united, didn't we? Don't hold back, worrying by yourself. We said we'd talk. Rosa, tell us. The men pressed her one after the other, and Rosa confessed resignedly and nervously. The atmosphere made it seem as though she was confessing to some modest prank, which had inadvertently brought about a serious situation. No, this mistress of grandfather's, this Beatrice, I was wondering if she's still alive. Huh? Isn't it obvious that she's alive? After all, she was able to send that letter to us. Whether she's in good health or not is a different story, though. That woman in the portrait must be getting up there in age by now. I'd say she's healthy. People who are crafty when it comes with money stay healthy no matter how old they get. Her evil plan might be the best rejuvenating agent. She shouldn't be alive. Huh? Why do you say that? Beatrice is dead. I killed her. What did you say? What do you mean, Rosa? But it really wasn't me who killed her. Though I did bring her to a place like that. No, I did kill her after all. I tried to make myself believe it was a dream, but it wasn't really a dream, was it? Which makes this a letter from Beatrice's ghost? It was so sudden that everyone was at a loss for words. Rosa kept on talking, unable to stop, holding her head in her hair as her hair flew all about. Calm yourself, Rosa. I have absolutely no clue what's going on. Already dead? What do you mean? HNK reference? I think it means two things. First, it's literal. Second, it backs up our earlier guess. Which means Rosa has met with Beatrice? I've never heard Rosa mention anything like this. Rosa, when was it? When could you possibly have met Beatrice? Long ago. Long ago. We just moved over to the island when I was still young. It wasn't my fault. It's not like I killed her. Calm down. Nobody's blaming you for anything. First, drink some water, okay? Natsu, the pitcher, please. I'm sus on the water. Please calm yourself. What does this mean? Until Rosa was able to calm her ragged breathing, no one was able to speak a word. And that is where we're gonna end tonight. I don't think I have time for all of this scene. I think I have to sleep. But this is like big. I can't sack sleep. I'm sorry, y'all. I really want to keep going, but I can't sack sleep. Where am I at? There I am. Okay. Please stop hitting us with your tail. Sorry. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I am going to miss you these next 2 weeks. So just as a recap, I'm competing in 2 Grand Archive Regionals, one this weekend and one next weekend. So I will not be back until Sunday, the 7th of July. Then I'll be streaming that week pretty normally. Then that following weekend, I'm out of town again. And the weekend after that, I'm out of town again. So it's going to be spotty streams for the next 4 or 5 weeks. I'll stream when I can. Follow the Twitter. Excuse me. Follow the Twitter to see when I am live. Let's raid somebody. But yeah, intermittent streams. It will still be Umineko. I'll be doing what I can, you know. You know how it goes. But yeah, I always appreciate everybody hanging out. Thank you for the stream. No, thank you all for hanging out. Win? I hope I will win. I will keep updating on that kind of stuff too. So definitely keep an eye out. Think I will. Oh, is this over? I think Shiro's ending. Good luck at regionals. Thank you. Hero's ending, so I can't really go there. Who am I streaming? Who am I rating to? Give me a second. Oh no, he's back. I'm gonna raid out to Shiro. Alright, bye everyone. Have a good day. Be good to one another. Make good choices. And I will see you all in a week or two, or in 2 weeks.